This week's episode of Parasyte the Maxim was a fantastic episode, which is continuing to build on the complex relationship between Shinichi and Satomi. Not only that, but that frickin' Yakuza massacre scene, guys. Holy crap, that was so intense and so awesome. Easily, I think, the best action scene of the entire series, and it just came out of nowhere. There was no precedent for this scene. It just opened up with this car appearing out of nowhere in front of this Yakuza building, and this big jacked dude getting out, who looks just like Razor from Hunter x Hunter, aside from the lack of pointy hair, but he pretty much has the same design overall. And this one guard tries to get up in his face, and then he just smashes his head against a brick wall, completely crushing it. And then he just walks in this room and just continues to slaughter 22 different gang members in a lot of really disgusting ways, literally ripping them in half, twisting their necks, taking two of them down at the same time and pummeling them into the ground. Just so satisfying was this scene, guys. It was really well animated, it was incredibly bloody and disturbing, and what was really cool about it is this was all just like a test. They were just doing this to see how far they could get against people who were using guns and weapons and knives and shit. And apparently that's pretty damn far. He got hit like 3 times. First he was cut in the arm, and then he got this huge sword go right through his face. It was really intense, guys. Definitely the best part about this week's episode. But it was still a good episode just on the development between Shinichi and Satomi, because there's this little love triangle going on, which is involving the character of Kana, who is creepily obsessed with Shinichi. It opens up with her having this really weird dream where they're both completely naked in a field of flowers. Just really stereotypical, just insert Fabio into this scene kind of scene, you know what I'm saying? And, I don't know, it was funny, but at the same time, she just comes across as a little creepy. And, you know, she's basically competing for Shinichi's love, and she's definitely losing by the end of this week's episode, because there's a lot of development from Satomi and Shinichi in this week's episode, because she's trying to get at the core of why he's changed, but he's not really getting into that at all. And they're just pretty much avoiding the whole subject. Every single time she brings it up, he just walks away, and they avoid the whole situation. And there's this really strange scene where they're in the park, and this mother and her son is having this extreme temper tantrum, and it completely messes with Shinichi, and he starts like having this weird, almost heart attack-like motion. And he's saying it's because there's like a hole in his heart, so to speak. And obviously this is all reminding him of his mother, and that's really what's at the core of what's wrong with Shinichi at this point. And of course, Migi it almost seems like he's slowly sort of taking over his body, and Migi really didn't do that much this week, mostly in the background, not really doing too much, but still, this was just a great episode. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Parasyte the Maxim? Yakuza's ass is getting killed! That's what's going on in this week's episode! God, that scene was so cool! Like, I literally, it's not too often when I'm, like, watching a show that I literally just have to go back and watch it a couple of times. But I did. It was great. It was intense. It was awesome. It kind of reminded me of, like, in the Terminator movie, when the Terminator goes into the police office and just destroys everyone in his wake, except this one was just way more violent, and this guy didn't even need weapons. He was doing it all with his bare hands, and he really wasn't, like, using any of his weird parasite powers or anything. He was literally just jumping around like a badass. And what I really love about this, too, is apparently there's this organization that's, like, trying to take over the government, and they're starting with this one parasite guy who's actually trying to become the mayor. And I love where this is going, how they're slowly taking over. And there was even a scene at the very beginning of the episode where they go back to the whole, like, people pulling out their hair, and we get to see the result of how that works. We actually get to see this one woman who's being taken home by this guy, and she takes a piece of his hair, and it starts to wiggle and then shrivel away, and then she just gets destroyed and killed. It's ridiculous. There's a lot of violence in this week's episode, especially in that Yakuza scene, which just, damn, just ripping dudes' heads off, cutting them up, taking their sword and using it against them. Just so many intense scenes. And, you know, it's all backed up by the great development of the characters as well. On the animation and artwork side of things, everything looked great. Obviously, the action scene was really fluid, but just the final scene where Shinichi and Satomi are walking home, just the lighting there of the sunset when they're having their first kiss, is handled really well. And the music is also really good. It's incredibly atmospheric. And it's almost kind of depressing at times, but it really fits the whole tone of this show. So This was just a really great episode right here. I got no complaints with it. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5. You should definitely check it out if you are following the series, because it was just plain kick-ass. This is poised to be one of the best shows of 2014. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And before you leave, please tell me what you thought about this week's episode of Parasyte the Maxim. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What do you want to see from the future of this new anime series? Before you guys leave, please subscribe to our channel if you have not already. You can do that by clicking on the channel icon right up here. And you can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter.